Hello and welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you're having a fantastic day. My name is Dylan. I like to imagine that I'm a wizard sometimes, but I also space out a lot whilst I'm reading books. But I like to think I pay enough attention to tell you guys about those books and to recommend some for you. And today I've just finished re-listening to The Empire of the Vampire by Kristoff. This is one of my all-time favorite books, and rereading it just solidified it as that top three book of all time, a 5 out of 5 for me. And I've just got to tell you guys about it. So let's go break down what the book's about, break down how I rate the characters, the plot, the writing style, and the world building, and tell you why you have to read this book. This will all be spoiler free. Thank you so much for tuning in. Let's dive into what this story is about. 17 years ago, Day's death came to the lands of Eladane. The sun no longer rises fully for these lands, meaning that there is still a bit of light during the day, but there is no sunlight, there's no direct sunlight. So vampires can now be out and about 24/7. They can roam the lands and there's nothing holding them back. And with this newfound freedom, the vampires have now conquered most of the lands, and things are looking very bleak for humanity. In Empire of the Vampire, we start in a jail cell with our main character, Gabriel de Leon. He is a former Silver Saint of the Order. He is a fallen hero. He has fought many battles and is famed across the lands. So how did he find himself in the hands of the enemy? We don't know. All we know is he is in the cell and he has a historian sitting across from him who wants to hear his tales. He wants to hear how he grew up and also what he's been doing recently. So this story is Gabriel's story. It's from his perspective, talking to a historian who is also a vampire, telling us what he was doing when Day's death came, how he became the hero he is, what gave him the ability to become a hero. You know, he might not just be a regular human. You have to find out by reading the book. This book is dark. This book is full of wit. This book has got heavy prose and it is just pure magic. It's compelling, and let's dive into everything. So my overall rating is a 5 out of 5. It's my number 3 read of all time. And at the moment, because I've just read it, I think it's number 1. I currently have Wrath and Words of Radiance above it, and I'm gonna have to read those books as well. But I don't know, it's pretty far up there. And for a first book of the series, where I normally don't rank first books of the series very high, it's incredible. My enjoyment level for this book was just so high because how much I enjoy the writing style, the wit, the characters. There's no chapter I don't enjoy because I love Gabriel and just how beaten he is. He's just doesn't give a shit about anything, and just you feel it on the page. And he's someone that does give a shit, but he comes across as not caring. But he's someone that cares deeply and has great wit, super smart, fantastic to hang out with. If you've got dark humor, you're going to get on with Gabriel so well. So diving into how I ranked each thing individually, characters 9 out of 10. There is nothing I can complain about these characters. They all have a good fleshed out backstory and very compelling motivations. Um, we get to know Gabriel and his companions quite well and get to see how they came to be how they are and the things that led them that way. So they all have believable backstories. They all are fun to hang out with. We don't like them all. They're not all good people. But just like how J. Abercrombie gets you cheering for Giselle or Glockter, you are going to be cheering for these characters. It's that grimdark vibe where these characters are morally great, but you still love them. Because just like ourselves, the characters aren't perfect, we're not perfect, but we want them to do good and have good things happen for them. And the thing that makes this book so good is the character interactions. I've used these words way too many times already, but the wit, the banter is just phenomenal. It keeps everything fun and engaging, and seeing the relationships of these characters develop throughout the stories. As we're getting multiple different timelines, we get to see Gabriel's interactions with his jailer, with his historian. Those interactions are really fun. His interactions with Dior, who we meet in his recent adventures, is really interesting how their relationships develop. And then in his growing up, those other relationships he had, it's really cool to see how they went, they started, how some of them finished. All compelling stuff. So next, let's dive into plot Again, 9 out of 10. Like, if I can't put a book down, that must mean there's something good with the plot to keep me wanting to come back. I've just finished reading Empire of the Vampire. I normally have a break between books when I'm going from book series to book series, but I had to stay with this. I'm jumped straight into Empire of the Damned. I love this work. I'm completely hooked in, and with the plot, there's just no wasted space because this is Gabriel retelling us the events that we want to hear. Jay Kristoff is not going to waste any time giving us stories we don't want, so everything we get is just juicy nuggets of the stories that we want to hear, and it's all just leading up to something that's going to happen in the last book, and we know something's going to happen, but we have no idea how we're going to get there, and that's just hooked me in. There's a couple really good twists in this book that are just perfectly done. Jay Kristoff is really good at doing twists, just like Brandon Sanderson and Mistborn. Jay Kristoff in his Nevernight series showcases some great twists, and they just level up in this series. So next, going on to writing style, 10 out of 10. No one writes a better book for me personally than Jay Kristoff. A lot of people will say his prose is too purple, but for me, it just does exactly what I need to do to put me in the world. The descriptive language, the words he chooses to use, the slang he uses, it just puts me in the mindset I need to be in the world he wants to show. The language he uses, I, as a very illiterate person, would describe as like French. So like the Madame Lachance and the sorts of voice he gives his characters and the words they use, like oui, is very to me it sounds French. It just puts me in that like European sort of vibe, and he keeps his tone very consistent. There's a lot of books I've read recently where people go from feeling like it's a YA book to then feeling like it's a smut heavy book to then just a whole different vibe every chapter. Kristoff is consistent. It's grimdark all through and through. There's no holding back. It's R-rated. You're just going to get everything. And it just flows so well. It just keeps you hooked to the page, keeps it interesting. And the narration really brought this world to life. So if you do struggle with prose-heavy books, go to the narration. Damien Lynch does a great job just bringing this world alive and showing you what the characters are like, just doing a great job there. So lastly, going to the world building and the magic, 9.5 out of 10. There's vampires, there's a dark world, but then there's the things that Jay Kristoff has added to this to make it so intriguing. There's the plot elements and the world building elements that are combined together to make such a good world. He didn't just build a world then a story, or just a story then a world. He combines them together so well, and it feels very fresh and creative. So for those of you out there that like hard magic systems, this is a soft magic system. With the vampires, they each have their own special abilities, and with the Order of Silver Saints, some of them might have some special abilities that seem really cool. There may be some sort of smoking of things to get certain abilities in these books. That's really interesting. The world building aspect with the day's death and the sun going away, super interesting. They're the most compelling vampires I've ever read in a book, and the writing just brings this world alive. So world building is top notch again for me. Summarizing everything up, if you like dark, witty books, you have to check this series out. The prose may be a bit heavy for some people, but I think if you chuck the audiobook on, you're going to have a great time. The plot's super compelling, the writing style is super interesting, the characters are so good. I think more people need to read this book. I love it. I hope you check it out. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you have made it this far, you might as well like the video, you might as well subscribe to the channel, and you have to comment down below your favorite grimdark book of all time so I can read it. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have a great day.